Okay, so in this episode, I would like to take a look at probably one of the most underrated and neglected pieces of equipment we have in our kitchens, our cutting boards. We use them constantly, and most of the time I just wash it off after I'm done using it and dry it off and throw it off to the side, and I don't really think about it, but I use it every day, constantly. So I made this cutting board myself. I actually made it this past winter, mostly out of necessity because I didn't have a good cutting board. And I know I needed one, and I was getting into some woodworking. So this was really my first attempt at kind of fine woodworking. It's not really in bad shape because it's not like it's had years of use, but it's starting to dry out a little bit. And I am seeing like the knife marks in it, which it's a cutting board. That's what you're going to get. You're going to get knife marks. It's going to get nicked up and banged up. It's showing wear. So I want to sand those out of there and rehydrate this and polish it up. I made this cutting board right along with this cutting board. This one is in really good shape because nothing has ever been cut on it. This is actually a cutting board that I'm going to use for my bar, which I don't have yet, but in maybe 6 weeks, I plan on doing a whole series on the build of my new bar because we're doing a little renovation here at the house, and this was the first piece of equipment that was going to go at the bar for cutting up lemons and limes and that sort of thing. I've also reached in the cabinet and I found this bamboo board that I also use quite a bit, and this is one that I have never touched. I have never treated it. I never put any oil on it. I just use both sides of it, and this one's really starting to show some deep gouges and some deep nicks and some knife marks in there. So I'm going to do the same thing with this. We'll see how that one turns out as well. So let's take these down to the garage, sand them up, get them nice and smooth, and we'll bring them back up for hydrating with some oil.
So again, really I could have gotten away with just moisturizing this board and hitting it with some oil. It's really not in bad shape. It's relatively new, but I wanted to go through the whole process just so I could show you in case your board is really beat up and it really needs the love. So I'm starting off with 80 grit sandpaper, and I'm using an orbital sander because it's going to make my life a lot easier. But if you don't have an orbital sander, that's okay. Just use a sanding block, a piece of wood, wrap your sandpaper around it, and go to town. It's just going to take you a little bit longer and a little bit more elbow grease. So I hit both sides with 80 grit sandpaper until I've worked out most of the nicks. So then I swap out the 80 grit for a 220 grit. Now I know some fine woodworkers are going to be like, hey, you can't go from 80 to 220. You got to go 80, 120, 220. But I'm just doing a quick job here, and I'm not really that concerned with it. I'm just going 80 right to 220. I'm crazy like that. Once you're done hitting it with the 220 grit, it's going to feel like a baby's bottom smooth. But here's the tip. What you're going to do next is grab some water in a spray bottle and spritz these things down really good. Both sides all over. And then you let it sit for a couple hours to air dry. What that does is it makes the fibers in the wood stand up. And you'll feel when you come back after it's dry that it's now no longer baby bottom smooth anymore. It's got a kind of a fuzzy texture to it. Then you're going to hit it one last time with the 220 grit sandpaper just to smooth it off again. If you skip this step, then once you oil your board, it might seem like it's smooth, but after a couple uses, it's going to suddenly feel fuzzy again and you lose that baby bottom smooth. So trust me on this one. Hit it with the water, let it air dry for like a couple hours, and then hit it one more time with that 220 grit. Thank me later. Then we're going to hit it real quick with a dry dish towel to get rid of all the sawdust on it, and back inside to take a bath in some oil. So why even oil your cutting board to begin with? Mineral oil will keep your board from getting dry and brittle. It will make it last longer. If you treat your board well, it'll last for years, maybe even your lifetime. The other thing oil does is it prevents liquids from penetrating the board. And liquid getting into your board could be a source of germs and bacteria, so it's just all around safer. So I'm using a food grade mineral oil, and you should too. Some other oils, like if you try to use olive oil, it might work okay at first, but it can go rancid, it makes your board sticky. So trust me, use a food grade mineral oil. I'll leave a link down below where you can get it on Amazon. You can't overdo it with the oil. The wood is going to want to soak it up. But you want to coat it really good with more than you think you need. All sides, edges, top, bottom. And then you're going to let it sit for a couple hours and really let that wood soak in that oil. And then to finish everything off, I'm going to end by buffing in some cutting board cream. This is Boo's Cutting Board Cream. There's a couple different companies that make it. It's basically mineral oil and beeswax mix. And this is just going to help to waterproof your board a little more. and help to maintain that baby bottom smoothness, and also a real pretty sheen. And this is applied a lot like car wax. You throw it on, you buff it in really good, you take a dry cloth, and you buff it and shine it. So in the end, I'm really happy with the way these came out. It's like breathing life back into an old cutting board. Even the bamboo I think looks great, which I had never done anything with. What I should be doing is about once a month, once every 2 months, hit it with some oil as the board starts to dry out. Then maybe every year, maybe every 2 years, depending on how banged up the board gets, sand it down to resurface it. But if you treat your board with love, you'll get a lifetime of use out of it. If you like this episode, please hit that like button. I appreciate it. Until next time, I'll see you around.